being in a balanced market, the same amount of volume transacting throughout the course. Is that making sense to everyone?
What's the trend with Wallingbar?
The Wallingbar, it's very similar to Austinville. There's no... I'll just go back to Austinville for you. With relation to Wallingbar, because the two suburbs are very similar, and there's no real, well, obviously being so close together, and you do see with up on the plateau there are very much a very similar trend happen, because they're similar buyers. They have the same distance to the coast and to Lismore. Obviously now that the bypass is going through, I do feel that there's going to be and that area there, I feel that probably in about 6 months' time, at the end of this calendar year, you'll start to see some stronger growth there. But realistically, not for the next, say, 6 months or so. Does that answer the question? Okay, cool. Okay, I've given a brief overview about what's been going on, very brief, and the reason for it is that I don't want to bog you down with too much information that's going to confuse the evening. But what's going on? What's the good news? Well, the good news is that things are selling. Properties are selling at the moment, and they will continue to sell. It doesn't matter if you're in a bad market, a good market, or an indifferent market. Properties still need to sell. But it comes down to a couple of key crucial points, and you need to discuss this with your agent, no matter who it is. If it's myself or one of the other good agents around the area, you will find that you will need to have these conversations with them. And if you have the property on the market for a while and you're not doing, you need to keep coming back to what's been going on, talking about the relevant information. Step one is how to determine the correct price. This is probably a very key to no matter what happens, and I'll go into more detail in the next few minutes, but understanding how to correct your property price correctly. You need a CMA. It's a competitive market analysis. You need to sit down with your agent and talk through what similar properties were sold in your area, what similar properties are for sale currently, and beware of emotion. You've got to take your emotion completely out of the equation, because it's at the end of the day, you've got to look at the selling your home as a clear business transaction. So when we're doing this, I always think of the double bay aspect, and I call it the double bay rule. The market won't matter with the emotional part I'm talking about here. The market doesn't really care if you've got to move to double bay and you need to go on a holiday, update your car, paint the house, and the removalist costs. At the end of the day, they don't care. It's completely where your property sits in the market. Is that making sense to everyone? So that's what I'm saying. Cost doesn't equate to value. So no matter what happens, your needs and the market value are completely two different things here. I can't stress that enough. And the people that we work with from time to time, we have to have this conversation with. As professional agents, you need to be having this conversation on a regular basis to make informed decisions about where your property sits. So that comes down to setting the price, your asking price. Consider the facts. At the moment, across the entire area, and I don't know why it is, but it just is. The difference between the last listed price of your home and the final selling price, on average, I must stress that, on average, is around 2%. There are some exceptions to the rules. It can be higher. It could be, you could get over what you want. But the difference is it's around 2%. So that's why it's extremely critical to know exactly where your property sits from the get-go and understand so you can make informed decisions. Is that clear to everyone? Because this is a bit of a graph that I always like to use. If you're closer to where it sits in the market from the time, you don't have to stretch. And what I mean here is as market value, as asking price may be really high, and market value may be really low, and then your poles apart. You're trying to pull yourself in two different directions. But if you're closer together, things come together quicker. Setting your price. If your price is wrong, you've got two options. First option is you wait till the market comes up and meets your price. I don't know how long that's going to take. It could take 2 years, it could be forever. It may never happen. Or you meet the market. And that's the decision that you really need to make. And as agents, we need to feed you the information to make sure that you're getting the right information to make informed decisions. I can't stress that enough throughout this evening. Because if you're in danger of overpricing, this is what may happen. If you're 30% over market, you could take a long time to sell your property. But if you're with less than 5% of where it sits in the market, you're going to have a very quick sale time. You know, if you're 30% over, you might look at 40 days and go, oh, what's going on here? Haven't had a sale, haven't had anyone through. What's the news? We'll drop it a bit. And then you're still 20% over. Then you go on for a little bit more and you go around with the same rhetoric. You and your agent, you dance around the pole saying, oh, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you meet where the market is and it sells and you're going, oh, what's going on here? Or you could very well get to a point where the property is going to be less than where it originally was going to sit in the market, because no one wants a property no one wants. So for argument's sake, this stories start to come about that property. It goes stale like a bad bucket of prawns in the sun. You know, these are the things that you've got to understand about about your property. We've had one instance where a property sat on the market for a long period of time. It was a brick and tile home on the Central Island here in Ballina, and there was a story went out about it had white ants in it. There was no sign of white ants. No, it hasn't sold because of white ants. Well, for starters, it was not true, but the market started to see there was something wrong with it. You know, and this is the important thing, is like the peak selling time will be in the first 3 weeks of selling your property. You know, that's when you're going to have the most amount of activity on your property if it's priced correctly and marketed right from the start. Is there any questions about that? Does anyone want to contest me on this? Because I'm more than happy to talk to it. Setting your price in the initial asking period is important, and I'd rather have the strong conversations with your agent right at the start than throughout the process, because no matter what happens, at some point in time you're either going to get upset, move on, or you're just going to go, this is all just too difficult, and stress starts the thing. You need, armed with the right information and the right mindset, you can actually alleviate a lot of pressure and stress along the way. And this is why it's critical in the initial marketing period to understand exactly what's going on and make sure that you're armed with the right facts. With this graph here, this is what I'm talking about, the first 21 days. The first 21 days is where you're going to have the most amount of buyer interest. Usually around about the 7-day mark. That's when it's going to be completely known to the market. You know, people may these days use the internet as a very strong medium. You know, 70% of buyers will now look on the internet as their first port of call. The paper would have come out. You know, there may have been an open home. The sign's probably gone up. If you've got an agent who's on it,